Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up. All the way up. I'm all the way up. I'm all the way up. Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up. Shorty what you want, shorty what you need. My niggas run game, we ain't never leave. Counting up this money, we ain't never sleeping. You got V12s, I got 12 V's. Got bottles, got weed, got Molly. I'm all the way up. Shorty what you want, I got what you need. Shorty what you want, I got what you need.
Breakdown, SkylineSportsMT.com, and we've heard the feedback. For whatever reason, you guys like to see us talk. I don't know why that is, but it seems like the numbers are even better when you get to see us talk. So here you are. You get to see Mike Ryder's beautiful face. You get to see my red face. I just got done with this workout. The Hype House is one of our sponsors here at the Big Sky Breakdown. I've been doing this physical therapy to try to get my alignment all right. I haven't gone to any of the hype and hit classes in a little while. I just did one. Oh my goodness, dude. This is like crazy. Have you ever done metabolic conditioning, Ryder?
You know what? It's been a while, but I've heard it's like athletic-based movements, right?
Yeah, right. It's all these twists and up and downs and yada yada. I mean, oh my God. I was in a class of 20 women just getting my ass kicked. It was unbelievable.
Good job, man. Good job. I love it. Getting the grind in. It's important to do.
Yeah, you got it. Well, I've been talking to you about my workout stuff because I need some motivation, and you're so good at it. So thanks for supporting me, man. I appreciate it.
You're a stud, man. You're a stud. Good job getting her in.
Well, thanks to the Hype House for their continued support of us here at the Big Sky Breakdown. Mike Ryder, former Bobcat player and coach, and now an analyst here at Skyline Sports, chiming in with us here on this Tuesday. First of all, Ryder, I'll just ask you your broad thoughts on the game on Saturday night. This Montana State team continues to just completely fascinate me because they can just play poorly for stretches at a time, and it just doesn't matter. It's crazy how, like, you watch college football all the time. The roller coaster is why we love college football. The volatility, the up and downs, the huge plays, the mistakes, all that stuff. None of that stuff even seems to exist at Montana State. They're just straight through until they beat you 45-30 like they did on Saturday.
Yeah, I think one, it was awesome on Saturday. I got to watch the full game. So those late kicks, while not beneficial, as we talked about last week for players and staff, my wife and I enjoyed it. We got did dinner, got the kids down, and I watched all 4 quarters. So I love that. But I will say the whole time I kept thinking about just the resiliency of that crew. Because you mentioned just the highs and the lows, and, opening drive, to on offense to get all the way down there and, not get any points. And then you have you're down 7-0, and then you get the pick 6 and you even it up. And so there's just like some early rides where they just didn't feel like they were in sync. And despite that, they find ways to get back on track and just control the football game. And for the 3rd or 4th week in a row, I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, but I think so much of it comes down to your ability to run the football. There's something that is foundational and something that is just obviously very, comfortable, and it gets them in the right mindset when you can run the football. There is something like if you're going to lean on throwing the football, to me, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. There's so much timing. And it can be really, really good. But, man, when it's not clicking, it's really hard to hang your hat there. Whereas in contrast, you see a team that runs the football and that's their identity. There's just a comfort to the whole thing. And I think maybe I'm old school in that, but if you can run the football and control the line of scrimmage, you just can win a lot of football games. And so you saw that while the defense was on the field a lot early. The hurry up exposed that defense a little bit, but I think you give credit to them because they found ways to still get off the field when they needed to. They lose Danny Yu, which is tough, and so you're not spelling guys. They look tired, but they get off the field on defense, and then they hang their hat on running the football. And it's like, we're going to go right back to our identity. Who are we? And then they're just a resilient bunch, and guys just respond. And that stuff doesn't just happen. You don't just get to choose being resilient. You don't just get to talk about having depth like we've talked about in previous weeks. You either are a resilient football team because you practice it and you put your team in uncomfortable situations in the offseason, or you haven't. And this team is a resilient bunch, and you could just see that from the first snap all the way through. They just imposed their will on them on the offensive line and got the job done.
It was so fascinating to watch too, because in the first quarter and a half, they tried to run all this razzle dazzle to really like get out ahead of Sac State. In the very first play of the game, they ran a double reverse, quarterback boot. And the DN from Sac makes, the play of his life and tackle stopping him a lot for a 7-yard loss. He misses that tackle. That's a 60-yard touchdown, the very first play of the game. They ran a bunch of end arounds with Marquis Johnson. They were trying to do all this stuff to get out early. And then it's just so funny in the second half, just outside zone, inside zone, outside zone. On that Jared White touchdown, it was so funny. I was right in the back of the end zone, and he scores. And Justice Perkins comes running off, and he's like, "What I tell you, run the damn ball, run the damn ball." It's so funny.
Yeah.
The offensive line's just like, "Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do whatever House Wrights call him." But at the end of the day, we're just going to go back to the bread and butter. We're just going to pound it, and it's just so impressive to watch.
Yeah, which if again, the exception is some of the razzle dazzle, the misdirection, trying to get people's eyes off of the on the wrong thing. And while that's awesome, and House Wright has proven in his time that those plays, you got to have them. And if Tommy Mellott, as you said, breaks the one tackle, it's a 60-yard gain, and it looks, and Coach House Wright looks like a genius. Right now, You're saying, well, holy smokes! Now you've gotten the razzle dazzle going, you've gotten the deep ball off of the play action, but everything is predicated on running the football with getting downhill, and so you have to have some of that creativity, and I like that because Coach House Wright possesses it, and it sure doesn't hurt when you have the athletes with the end arounds, like Marquis Johnson. You got two quarterbacks, and while the reverse pass didn't work with Chambers, still having those in your arsenal, they do work. They didn't work on Saturday night, but again, you go back to the old trusty. It's like for me, it's my wedge. Like I'm a bad golfer, but man, I like my wedge. I know that I can hit it 132 yards. I can saw it off and get it to like 100. It feels pretty comfortable in my hands. And so that's how that offense views it. We're going to get back to running inside and outside zone and running right down your throat. And they continue to control games in the line of scrimmage, which is impressive.
Yeah.
At Blackfoot Communications, our mission is to connect people, businesses, and communities, bringing a world-class fiber network to homes, communities, and businesses of all sizes, ensures Montanans have access to fast, reliable, and secure internet and phone services. Are you ready for fiber internet? To find out if fiber is coming to your area, visit goblackfoot.com/readyforfiber. Connect to more with Blackfoot Communications.
Yeah, and I was on the sidelines for this game. It's the first time I've been on the Cat sidelines in quite some time. I usually go down for the Gold Rush, but that's more like of a social hour, because the Cats are usually winning by a bunch, and you're seeing all these guys that are back and all this stuff. But I was just hanging out on the sidelines, just watching, and it's fascinating to me the way that they coach. Sean Howe, the D-line coach, certainly is just what you'd expect, fire and brimstone, rah, 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 super energy, just like you'd expect a D-line coach to be. But like offensive line, it's just like they're an offensive line class. Everybody's just happy and jolly, and there's not any yelling, and they're just drawing it up on the board. And hey, what do you see in here? Okay, let's do this, this, and this. The systematic way of attacking things is just so fascinating. I think so much of that comes from the head coach, right? I mean, Brett Deegan is so steady. And most of his assistants are like that too. And I feel like that's part of the reason why they don't ride the wave.
Yeah. My dad and I were having a conversation yesterday or 2 days ago. My folks were over for dinner, and we were watching that or talking about it. And he just said, Coach Vigen, he just seems like he just stays right here all the time. And even like the highs and the lows. And when you look at just, leadership, man, that is an incredible trait to have right now. He can, and so when he gets fiery, he does, and that he means it. But there's just a steadiness to him, and his team kind of follows suit. And you see guys that like, look, we're built for this. We're not going to panic. We're going to just go one play at a time and be as physical as we can. And we've physically and mentally prepared for exactly where we're at. And so you look at it as a whole, they're a steady group that's resilient. And I also said this to my dad too. I hope that Bobcat fans are appreciating this like they ought to.
Yep.
Just to go down, there was a time, and I've been a part of it as a player and a coach, and where you go down and you're on the road, and it just becomes like, hey, we got a really talented team, but it was like, we need this to go right. We need this to go right. We need this to go right. And then things will win, things will go like they should, and we can get a W. It wasn't like this confidence, that was just so deep and entrenched in it. And I think that is just it's awesome to see. So I hope Bobcat fans are appreciating the fact that they can go down to Sacramento and win in the trenches and win a tough game while you're playing a really good football team. And then you can turn around and go back to Idaho this week, and they're going to have that same business-like approach. And winning football games is hard. Winning one game is hard, Colter. And so you see what they've done over and over again. I hope the Bobcat faithful understand how difficult it is and appreciate all these wins, because it's pretty magnificent to watch.
It is. I was going to ask you exactly that. I mean, the rise of the Cats has been occurring since, Mike Kramer took over, right? I mean, it's been this incremental build, and Mike Kramer and Rob Ash and Jeff Choate have all had a hand in building this foundation to get to where they're at. And there's been so many great Cat teams, the ones you played on, the ones when I first started covering them with Denarius McGee and Cody Kirk and Tanner Bleskin and Brad Daly, and all these legendary Bobcat names. And still, anytime the Cats would be on the road or anytime there'd be in a big game, you'd be like, yeah, they got a chance in this game, but certain things are going to have to go this way or the other way, or, it's hard to win in Ogden. It's hard to win at Sac. It's hard to win at NAU, all these different things. Now it's just like, I don't know, maybe I'm overconfident in them, but when I look at it, I'm just like, I just don't think this team is going to lose a Big Sky Conference game, save maybe the rivalry in Missoula, but that's just a coin flip every single year. It's just crazy how they have just erased all level of doubt. I mean, even this week, they're going to the number 9 team in the country. Idaho is one of the darlings of the FCS, and I still think the matchup favors Montana State significantly. I think that the only way that the Bobcats could go in there and lose is if they turn the ball over a whole bunch and beat themselves. It's crazy how they've risen to this level of dominance.
Yeah. And just the appreciation for the history, because everything, all football, organizations and ones that are at the top and are very successful, there's a process to the whole thing, and they all compound, and you have to have certain phases in your program to appreciate and to get to the other phases, right? I mean, like a Mike Kramer that took over that needed what it needed in that edge, and then it transitioned to Coach Ash, and very grateful to be a part of his staff and my time there. But he was a little bit more by the book, which was awesome. It's what the program needed. And then it needed a shot of life and something different with Jeff Choate, and man, did he get things going. And then you take it over with a vegan who's kind of somewhere in between. So it's just part of the process, and it's really fun to watch, because these teams expect to go win regardless of where they're at. And it's a ride that, again, as a Bobcat, it hurts me to say this, but it's not forever. These things don't last forever. Just don't. It doesn't last forever. And so I hope people are appreciating it. I hope it's certainly a longer chapter than a shorter one. But, they're primed to make a deep playoff push. They've got the talent. They've got the resiliency. They've got the mental fortitude to really handle their business. And we've seen it from going toe-to-toe with South Dakota State and being 6 inches away from a W there. I mean, they're the number 1 team in the country. But ultimately, they're a team that goes 1 week at a time. They're a business-like approach because it comes from the top down. And I like them to have another successful weekend in Moscow.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Right down the road, pump it up. Oh yeah.
Moscow.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing I always wonder is, I think part of it's just the way they manage and talk about everything. Brett Vegan is the most forward guy about injuries of any coach I've ever dealt with. He comes into his press conference and says, hey, these guys are out. This is what's changed on the depth chart. But then he also says, hey, in this organization, next guy's ready to go. Here's the guys that are up next. We have full confidence in these guys. He doesn't try to hide any of that stuff. It's not like some secret before game day. I mean, like on Saturday, they're down to their 3rd nickel. They moved Miles Jackson to nickel 4 days before the game. Ryan Lonergan didn't even know he was going to start until like 90 minutes before kickoff. And then all of a sudden they're like, yep, you're in. Snell, one of our best players, is out. And, Lonergan's sitting there in a fullback stance for the first time in his life in a game and going through the whole, and it just doesn't matter. I wonder how much of that is just the tactful managerial style that Vegan operates with.
Yeah. And you're equipping your guys to be ready for the moment. And again, that starts in January, February, when you're doing your winter conditioning and you're equipping guys and you're developing your depth, and then you just reap the benefits now. And so to me, I'm always impressed by his leadership. We've talked about his unwavering, kind of, steadiness, which is awesome, but there's something about, the expectation of like the next guy up, and you can't just talk about it. You got to be about it. You got to give guys opportunities. They practice that way. They clearly, prepare mentally that way. And you just trust that, like, hey, the next guy's going to step in and he's equipped because he's been trained to do this. And it's just that next man up mentality. So again, it's a fun thing to watch. And they're going to have their work cut out for them here in the home stretch as they head to Idaho. And then you got NAU and you got Eastern, who are always just tough, but having them those at home are great. And then, like you said, it's a coin flip there with the Cat Grizz game. But they're primed to make a good push, and they're getting some help back right now. Colter, which is good. You get a Taco back. It looks like Lavelle is going to be back in the nickel. Linebackers still a little bit of a concern. You lose Danny Yu, and they've already been pretty thin there. And Nolan took a ton of reps, as did O'Reilly. So kind of interesting to see how they piece this whole thing together and continue to be dominant on defense. And they had a little bit of exposure last week, but all in all, this team is primed to make a nice push here as we head into November.
Well, let's talk just quickly about this game on Saturday. Then I think, first of all, I think Idaho learned a lot of lessons after the Montana game, not only in the operation of the game, but also just the hype behind it. I mean, they hyped that thing beyond belief. They were trolling Bobby Houck every single day, cutting out little snippets of him to get it all juiced up. They moved Montana's sideline right in front of the student section, so there would be a bunch of jabber going back and forth. And I think that going into the game, I think that really boosted the crowd, but I also think Idaho had never played in games like that. Montana's played a million of them, and that's why I think the Grizz had the upper hand right out the gates. I thought Idaho was kind of on edge early. They rallied all the way back, but they were just a little bit too little too late. You see this week, they're not hyping this thing at all. And I think that's because they know. I mean, the Cats are higher ranked than the Grizz. I know the Grizz and Idaho had this long-standing rivalry. They got a trophy, all that. But, I do think that they learned a lot from the maybe overhyping that they did last week. Sure. All that aside, though, I think it's a fascinating matchup because I don't think Idaho has anything for the Cat run game. But I also think that when Idaho's got the ball, I think that's the worst matchup in the league for the Cats because I think their quarterback is so sweet. And the Cats are good in the secondary, but I just think that Hayden Hatton and Jermaine Jackson are just better than everybody else in the conference. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think of that side of the matchup, just Idaho's offense versus the Cat defense?
Well, if I'm Idaho, I'm going to go hurry up because that's where the Cats, look to be, a little bit tired last week. So you try and stay ahead of the chains. And that's where they were successful. Sac was. They stayed ahead of the chains. They were on schedule. They went some hurry up. Quarterback was able to scramble here and there. And then I would take my shots with Hatton downfield. He's a really good player. I know people talking about him like he's Cooper Kupp. I definitely wouldn't put him in that category, but he's a heck of a player. And Coach Willie Mack, they'll have their answers for him, whether it's brackets, whether it's rolling the coverage to him periodically on third downs. But the matchup to me has got to come back to the defensive line. Can the defensive line get the quarterback off of his spot? Can they do a good job containing and being strategic of like, hey, when are we going to pressure? Because you do want to heat him up and confuse him when you can, but it's got to be tactful. It's got to be well designed. And if you get a shot on him, you got to get him down. And so you got to be disciplined in your rush lanes and choose your time to provide pressure, some bluff pressure and then to drop out, and then it confuses him. So I like the matchup, but I think just with the 4-man rush, the Cats have got to find ways to get pressure because they didn't last week. Brody Grebe finally got sacked there late in the fourth quarter, but for a team that had 20 sacks going into last week, and now they're at, I think 21 is all, maybe 22, but they've got to find a way to get some pressure on the quarterback, and just 4-man organic pressure, and then you're able to mix in the zone pressures or man pressures with adding, a fifth or a sixth guy. So I think it comes back down to Brody Grebe and Sebastian and Ben Seymour and those guys being able to get some pressure. And it's going to be a heck of a matchup. And trying to win that turnover battle is going to be huge, like you mentioned, and then lean on those big heavies on the offensive line and make it happen and run the ball down their throat.
Formula's simple. Like Brent Vegan always says, if we rush for 275 and we turn the ball over less than you, we're going to win.
Yep.
It sounds simple, but they're pretty good at it. He's Mike Ryder here on the Big Sky Breakdown. Mikey, thanks for joining us, man. And best of luck with the rest of the week. We'll talk to you next week. And Larry, thanks for riding shotgun and listening in.
Yeah, it was fun to be a part of it. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Colter. Have a good week, man.
See you guys.
See ya.
Do you have a DUI or misdemeanor conviction? If so, don't let your past hold you back. Hi, I'm attorney Dave Maldonado, and you may be eligible to have your record cleared today. Visit BigSkyDefender.com to see how.